We're going to have an alumni night on May 1st in New York. You got the invitation. Okay, fine.
Yeah, I got that.
Can we start by, you explain to them, how did you get that job originally? Is it networking? Is it going on LinkedIn? How did you get the first job?
Actually, like Lehigh is holding the Wall Street Council annual event basically in September or October. During that MS AF session, and I recognized a person who is working at AIG, and I tried to connect with him for a long time. He's basically giving me a lot of suggestions for the job hunting, including resume editing and helping me prepare for the interviews. I got 30 plus big companies interview invitations. But maybe there's something, maybe I need to improve my interview skills in that field initially, but later I heard that there's job opportunity in AIG, and the person helped me refer for that opportunity and gave me some suggestions on how to prepare for the interviews. And luckily I passed the interviews and got the opportunity to enter into AIG.
So you interview with 30 companies?
Yeah, basically.
All right, and so what, hold on, we can start now, what am I here? So maybe you could tell us what you're doing now then, the IG Asset Management.
I'm currently working, our group is called Asset Modeling Operation Service. Analytics service, and basically, AIG is like the main business, like the insurance company in order to hedge like the claims. For the asset management side, we are basically holding all the fixed income products, including all the asset classes, like structured products, RMBS agency, CMO, something like that. And basically, we are responsible for producing analytics and cash flows for these fixed income products. And we are closely support the front desk and help answer inquiries or just requests from the front desk.
And what are some of the tools that you're using right now? Programming tools or packages? What are you using?
For me personally, for my current position, there's not too much programming tools involved. The most, advanced probably just the SQL, because there's a lot of data we need to manipulate with SQL queries to extract the data and export into Excel to do more the analysis. But sometimes when we are running for the hedge fund model or just a mutual fund model, we need to run the model, but that is already developed by the developers, so we probably just need to run them. Sometimes we need to know some basic programming languages in order to debug with that. But all our the scripts are written in R or just Excel VBA, so we didn't have too much exposure to the programming. And basically, for my current role, it involves a lot of facilitating. We need to reach out to people in the modeling department or IT or just the front desk to collect the information, just understand what they need and help them solve their problems.
And one last question, then I'm going to let the team ask you their own questions. Do you feel that the position, so basically it's a very quant-driven job that you have, right? Or is it client or?
No, I don't think it's a quant-driven, to be honest. For our role, it's just it's more like the analytical side, and it involves a lot of the data analysis to get the business meaning or just intuition side of the products. For example, currently I'm working with a desk to research the how the economic factors would affect the losses of mortgage residential loans. So we don't know too much about the model, so we just try to affect like the economic factors like HPL, just unemployment, how this like changes over quarter could affect the losses rate changes from quarter to quarter. It's more like the intuitive side, or just like economic meaning side. There's not like too much quantitative or just the programming involved with it.
And what are some of the classes? When you were here, what were your best classes that you think helped you in what you're doing now?
Like the classes that's linked to me most is apparently the fixed income course, like taught by Professor Tish. Yeah.
You're taking that course now?
How did you do in that course?
The course at that time is just a bit complex, and I didn't think I performed well in the like final exam, like because it would be relatively hard at that time for me. Yeah, but the content is very useful because it's like, for example, I think I'm not sure what is your current curriculum right now, but for my class, just the Professor Kish give us like the Excel modeling, like to determine, like give you some static assumptions of the collateral, and then we can base that information to project the cash flows of RMBS agency product or just the CMO. I think that is just a very basic, just a high level assumptions. Like in the real world, it would be more complex, but the fundamental things is the same. Plus, for my current job, I think just a CFA, the certificate is highly valued. So in our group, like our manager are encouraging us to take the CFA program. Yeah.
As opposed to the FRM?
Yeah, they didn't. I personally passed 2 levels of FRM. Like my manager also passed that, but for whichever reason, I think CFA is more like realistic, just more practical. So they pay higher value to CFA instead of FRM.
So you're talking about FIN 377, but I think a lot of us already taken that class. Is there any other? What class would you recommend after that would be the most useful class you could take at Lehigh? Because I feel that class is all about pricing. It has nothing to do with fundamental analysis, anything of that sort. So is there anything like on the fundamental side or any other aspect of it?
Sorry, can I understand, like your question is which course do I think is the most useful in Lehigh?
Yeah, because like you mentioned Professor Kish's class, and that class has like it's 90% to do with pricing.
Yeah.
So I just have 2 questions. The first is what we learn in that class legit what they use in the industry, or is it like very theoretical sort of an education? They sort of they throw it out once you get there. And
Yeah.
the second is after that class, what's the second most useful class? Or what's the second best opportunity we can make while we're at Lehigh?
Okay. So for the first question, I think the case class can provide us some like very fundamental things. Like for example, the example I just gave, like how we are determining the RMBS agency or CMO cash flows by the Excel modeling project. I think modeling team would do something like more similar to that, but with more complex version. And also in Kish class, we are also learning like the linear approximation using duration and the convexity to get the approximated prices. That formula we would always use in our high level check to check, like for example, from the base scenario to like interest rates going up 100 basis points per scenario, whether the in the high level perspective, whether the weighted average duration, whether the price is like going in the right direction, that would always use in our daily work. For your second question, I think with the resources, if I understand correctly, just you want to ask like what resources you can utilize at Lehigh, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think just you can. I think Lehigh is like Wall Street Council is an association that they will like organize a lot of events, and also last week I was invited into a program. It's just basically multi like founded by like 4 Lehigh alumni. They want to um, like they want to organize they want to have a like pilot program, which basically they will each mentor in that program will choose 3 or 4 students at Lehigh, which we will use our spare time to give like the Lehigh students like the mentor opportunities. I think that is a program to utilize. It's still in the pilot stage, and I don't know when you guys will receive like the official notice, but definitely like to take like just pay attention to this kind of notification. And also they mentioned too called Lehigh Connects, and you guys can feel free to research for that or just like register for that. It's there are a lot of alumni on the Lehigh Connects. If you are posting some questions, it is relatively easy to find your answers here. For the Lehigh, I think there are Lehigh alumni who is working at different industries or just even different sectors in the financial industries at Wall Street or other very good financial organizations. Just to utilize LinkedIn to try to reach out to them. When companies or just going to Lehigh to have the informational sessions or just when they just come back to Lehigh to share the experiences, just take the opportunity to try to get more information, try to like reach out to them, to talk to them, to get some like the experience from their side, or just to try to get whether they have some suggestions for you. I noticed that like you guys have a lot of opportunities to work on the project. Like this year, I think it's pretty good because as a student, we don't have too many like the real like the work experience, so we can just put our project experience on our resume. That can also help us like get the recruiters as and get more interview opportunities. Is that answering your question?
Thank you.
Do you think that when you, oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna have to speak loud.
Yeah, so my question is that, because you were talking about how you interview like almost 30, 40 some companies. So during a company, what is what is like the cutoff when the company were asking you questions about, quants, and then questions about your past experience with internship, and also questions just, like tricky or like smart questions to kind of see like how intelligent you are. So like, how do you prepare for those interviews, and what should people who graduate from MFE expect from these interviews?
Okay. I think just for the because personally, like I can do programming, but I'm not too much interested in programming, to be honest. So the position I applied for is mostly not that quantitative. I indeed applied for the quantitative analyst in the past, and I passed like sorry, I can put it this way. If you're applying for more quant role, like quantitative analyst, they would relatively just give you a modeling test or just a programming test. For example, I interviewed like there's position in UBS called like market risk, like the model validation, something like that. And they are giving you like the test that asks you to solve some like portfolio, like asset allocation questions, or just ask you to calculate the risk profile for the portfolio, like using programming R and SQL. That give you some time, like 3 days, I think, just ask you to finish and send them back the results. Once you are finishing this modeling test, I was invited to the final round interview. I think just for the in-personal interview, just they are more focused on, instead of like the quantitative part, they are more focused on like your experience and also your intuition. The reason that I failed initially for so many interviews is just because I can't answer the questions in a like mathematical way, or just use like very simple language to explain that, but I have a hard time like explaining the things in a more intuitive way. Like I remember the UBS, like they asked me questions like what is market risk. They are asking me to give them the like very simple way to explain the problem, which I didn't answer it pretty well. Even in my current position, I was asked a question like, what is the difference between R square and adjusted R square? I try to like explain in the mathematical way, but the interviewer is actually another managing director in my company. He's not satisfied with that, but he gave me some things. I answered that like eventually, but my feeling is that intuition part is very important. Once you pass to some like particular tests, they are not focusing on the quantitative anymore. Basically, especially the large companies, they will think like no matter it's for the programming skills or just for the technical skills, they can train you. Just it's easy for you to pick it up within short time. As long as you have like the fundamental, just like the thinking idea, just like the basic concept of the programming. So going back to the question, like the percentage part, I think just to make sure you are familiar with everything you are putting on your resume, and for each bullet point, just be prepared like for 30 seconds to 1 minute to give them the stories of what is going on. And anything you are putting in the resume, just to be ready that the interviewer probably would ask you some questions related to that.
Thank you. Great, thank you. Any more questions, Blair?
Yes.
Please.
Hi. So if I understand this correctly, like you were saying, your responsibility is kind of to identify the economic factors or collect those parameters for your model, right? So what kind of model do you use, or like how do you identify those factors? Identify some legitimate factors. Like what way or methods do you use?
Oh, sorry. Maybe I didn't express it clearly, but our role just actually is our role is just it's just like there's a user friendly platform, like interactive platform that is used, and the modeling team is responsible for developing the model, and we are also buying some models just from the third party, the vendors. And IT is responsible for deploying these models for our users. And for that part, just for my group, what we are doing just to click the buttons, then like we can get the results like automatically. And what we are doing just to make sure the analytics like or the cash flows the model generates makes sense, or just in the high level perspective it makes sense. Yeah, so we are just using some very simple rules for the high level. Like for example, interest rates, we have like, since we have different scenarios for each of like the analytics or just the cash flows we produce, we would have generated in different scenarios. For example, if you are going from your current just a base scenario to like interest rate goes up 100 basis points per scenario, you would expect like the price goes down. You would have like the generated duration and the convexity. You can use like the linear approximation formula to see whether the price changes is within your expectation in the high level, in the ballpark. Yeah, that is one example of what my team is currently doing. Yeah.
And my second question is, you were talking about, you heard there was opportunities in AIG. So how did that work? Like they came to you, or like you searched for the opportunity, like you actively searched for the opportunities. How did you hear about the opportunity?
Yeah. Actually, for the person I mentioned, it's just basically like the mentor of me, and so he gave me a lot of suggestions on the resume and the mock interview. So we have like kept a long contact. So every time I have some like updated information, for example, I get the final interview, just I want to get some tips for prepare the interview, I will reach out to him. So just a long-term connection. So when he knows there's opportunity, he sends me a message and saying that, oh, Blair, there's opportunity that's in the company. Do you want to, I think your profile face opportunity pretty good. Do you want to try it? Just to, like, he can help me refer for that.
Was this mentor Lehigh alumni? Like you found him, like you reach out to him through the Lehigh Connects or stuff like that?
I think Lehigh alumni is just you can definitely use that. And at that time, I didn't know like the Lehigh Connect. It's just from like Wall Street Council events. Just I think it's holding September every year, like the Saturday one-day event. And I recognize the person and talked to him. And I don't know for whichever reason, but apparently I leave a good impression on him. And later, after I trying to reach out to him, and he's more than willing to help me. So I think the main takeaway from here is just use every opportunities that if you can have the connection with people, just to make sure that you are trying to reach out to them, to talk to them, and leave a good impression on them. And also just to form like a longer term relationship, just to it's not like that you are just trying to reach out to the people and then get referral opportunities. It's not like that. For me personally, it's just like I didn't ask him like formally, do you want to be my mentor? But what I would do is just to whenever I have something like that comes up, just some updated information, I will reach out to him and just to tell him what is going on with me. If like he recommends something, for example, he's recommending that you should check this article, just you should read this book. I mean, that's just an example. And I will finish that and tell him that what he told me, I have already do that, and I have taken his suggestions very carefully. It's just like the feedback to tell the person that you are paying attention to their advices. Their advices are very important to you, and you received a lot or just achieved a lot by utilizing, just by taking their suggestions. I think just you need to have it in the circle. So when the next time, if there's any opportunities comes up in their organization, it's more easier for them to think about you and just to forward you this opportunity.
Thank you.
Sure.
Last question.
That's fine.
I was just wondering if you knew, if you could give us some clarity on which jobs are most likely to hire international students, the ones that, because I know a lot of them, when you think of having to apply for an F1, H1B and all that, it's easier for some of them to do it. Like if you're working in mathematical oriented part of the finance business, then as opposed to if you're working in sales or something. And so I was wondering if you could point us in the direction of which companies or which roles are easiest or most willing to hire foreigners.
I don't have like the specific reasons or just which type of roles I'm more willing to hire international students. But based from my objective, is more like the quantitative roles or data related roles are more easy to hire international students. And also if you are, there's one thing I think we need to remember sometimes like their company just the job posting that saying that they will not sponsor. Just don't believe that. If you are interested in the job, just apply that. Just reach out to the people that who is working there. Just let them to help you refer that if you can. Because even if they are saying now sponsor, for example, Wells Fargo says they are not sponsoring, or just some particular investment banking firm says they are not like sponsoring, but you could always see people who are like get sponsored and working in that organization. So don't be threatened by this kind of words. It's always like case by case. And the key tip is just if they don't ask you whether you are the international student or just whether you need a sponsor initially, don't answer the questions. I know like you must fill the information in the job application field, but sometimes like the HR people just, they will just ignore that. If they don't ask you, don't mention them by themselves. Just prepare yourself to, make yourself to prepare for the interviews and behave very well to impress them. Sometimes you just like whether the hiring managers, it's not like the HR's decisions. It's always just like from hiring managers' decisions, whether they want to go through like the more complex process to hire you as an international student. Although I know the trend, like in the industry, in the current days, it's just they are not gradually not like sponsoring international students, but that is a fact, and you need to accept that. You can always find companies that will still willing to sponsor, give you the opportunities to work here. Just try your best to reach out to them. So if you think like a regular process, if you are just apply the jobs online, it will not easy to cross the line, because if you are filling the application, like you need the sponsorship, you need like the OP, you need like they sponsor you to work here, it will just filter out your application. If that is the situation, I think the more useful case is just to network. Network is always the most important here in the United States if you want to find a job. Because if you are applying online, what you are standing in front of interview, just a paper. There are no difference from your paper, just any other else's paper. But if you are reach out to them, if you are try to talk to them and impress them, it's a person, it's an active person. They possibly would give you the opportunity to do that.
And one final question. So do you, are you participating in the lottery, or are they with AIG or?
Yeah, I've already got my H1B.
Oh, so you went to the lottery.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's a trend that we're developing. Great. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
See you.
See you.
Bye-bye.